Now Samantha, Sam, is going to tell you about the music side of the Red Thread movement.
As we say, in itself, a red bracelet doesn't really change anything. And buying one probably isn't going to drastically change the world. But joining the movement changes everything. And I'm not just talking about Red Thread or ending sexual slavery. I'm talking about a movement of college kids who are praying earnestly to God, telling him, I'm tired of planning my life, you take over. And he will. He will change all of your plans and give you something that you never knew you wanted. But it will be so filling and so worth it. Now about the bands. I started recruiting bands last summer to wear bracelets, talk about them on stage, and to sell them at their merch tables. When the idea first came out of my mouth to get bands involved, I was honestly just throwing something out there. But then Linda turned to me and basically said, well, Sam, you have the connections, go for it. And I was like, okay. I have no idea where to start. And so I didn't know how I was going to get bands to listen to me or take me seriously, but over time, I just kind of had peace, and I knew that God was going to take care of it. I started in May with my friends and outside the camp, and they were so enthusiastic about starting it, even though it was basically nothing at this point. So I got together with our graphic designer, Debbie, and we designed and printed posters, flyers, and postcards in 1 week before their next concert. At that concert, we got 2 more members, the wedding in Waverly. God took an inexperienced, uncommitted, 19-year-old girl who had other plans for her summer and threw her into a huge and incredibly swift river without her even realizing it. That is how good he is. I didn't ask him to use me, but I just never guessed how something so unexpected and so random can be traced back to a lifetime of preparation. I have no doubt that God has been behind everything that has been going on with Red Thread. A girl that I'd come in contact with randomly messaged me on Facebook early on in the movement and suggested that I talk to a band called Don't Wake Aislinn. But I just kind of forgot about her suggestion for a while. Then, one night I was at a random concert listening to a band who started talking about sex trafficking on stage. And so something sort of clicked in my mind, and I dug out my phone and looked up the message, and sure enough, I was at a Don't Wake Aislinn concert. So I went up and talked to her as soon as they got off stage, and they've ended up becoming one of our biggest supporters. They sell hundreds of bracelets every single month and constantly recruit other bands and their fans to start doing something about it. That's the same night that I talked to Aaron, who was the road manager for Ivory Line, and he said that the second I walked up to the table, he knew he was supposed to listen to me. Before I even said anything, he was already committed in his heart to listening to what I had to say. So tell me that that's not God moving. So I've basically seen how my plans and efforts have constantly failed. I sent out over 100 messages on MySpace to bands telling them about the movement, and out of 100 messages, one band replied, and they ended up not doing it. So now I have emails coming in from bands all over the country who already have their hearts set on helping, and they're already prepared to do it. And so I've just kind of seen that all the things I was so certain of and all the plans I had have fallen through to make way for God's opportunities. God is so amazing and so faithful in the fact that He's directed us and stuck with us despite our plans. And we've just kind of learned to wait and see where He takes us instead of forcing our own path. He's done so much more than we could have accomplished with years of planning. I took it to Cornerstone Festival in Illinois in June, and that was where we talked to over 40 bands, we handed out hundreds of postcards, and we told numerous concert goers about the Red Thread movement. And Red Thread music just kind of took off in full force. The rest of the summer, I basically lived and breathed Red Thread. I revamped all the materials, and slowly the closet turned into a distribution center, which is now taken over our dorm room. It took off so fast that we had a hard time keeping bands restocked. At one point, Ivory Line was on tour and had run out. Harp and Lyre texted me saying that they had sold all of their bracelets in their first show, and they even had to sell the bracelets right off their wrists because fans still wanted them. Outside the camp had already run out, and people were coming up to them at their shows and asking them about it. And Dina messaged me and told me that all of the bracelets that I could spare needed to be sent to her immediately because they were in such a high demand at their concerts. And at this time, we had about 50 bracelets left out of the original 800. So I just kind of realized that all of the bands that had rejected the movement initially did so to fulfill God's plan, because timing has been everything. We now have about 20 bands and 2 clothing companies and 1 graphics company that are official members, and we're constantly having more in the works. The bands have been so incredible too. It's amazing to see a Christian band that is so eager to use its gifts and its fame for something greater than the music or the money or the success. These are the kinds of guys that tell fans to buy a bracelet instead of one of their shirts, even though that money determines whether or not they have enough gas to make it to the next venue. They reach the fans who have the power to take what they hear at the shows and bring it to their separate communities, and they reach thousands more people than we ever would have been able to. I realized recently that I'm actually not as overwhelmed as I probably should be, considering all the responsibilities that we've taken on with this movement. But I've come to see just how much time that I was blowing on myself before Red Thread started, and what a waste of time it was. Time that I can't get back. We've been given time on Earth, so why not do something with it? The outreaches of our generation and the chances we have do not end in Nepal. We have the power and opportunity by God's providence to spread our efforts worldwide. Don't ever be afraid to talk to anyone that you feel is going to look down on you and tell you that you don't belong where you are. I no longer feel like anyone is unreachable. We've had conversations with people of influence all across the country, from To Write Love on Our Arms to Lush. We've had 2 Halogen articles. There was someone in the office of Jedediah Clothing Company talking to their president about the Red Thread movement. Brittany has people from Tom's calling her. There's a manager planning a Red Thread tour for next summer. Jeremy from The Devil Wears Prada gave us his personal consent to use his picture on our poster. And I got to meet Mark Lewis. This movement, this movement has been all about people. We want to encourage you to turn whatever dream is in your heart into reality. God is so faithful, and if you're willing, He will use you. If you want a full list of the bands that are doing the Red Thread movement, we have a website for it. It's redthreadmusic.org, and all of the music you listen to coming in were all bands that are part of the movement. You can also check out our Facebook and our MySpace and our Twitter for stuff that's coming up. We should actually have a benefit concert sometime next week in Abilene, so we'll be posting information on that. And Brittany has a few notes.
Can you change the slide, Mark? Yeah, we just want to let you guys know how you can get involved if you're interested. I think it's really not our works, it's God's grace and purpose that is doing this, and He hasn't given us a spirit of fear but of power, and I believe that is true for each one of you guys too. And so if you're interested in working specifically with us, you can come talk to us afterwards. But there's also the fashion show, if you guys remember from last year. They're doing another one in March of spring semester. So if you're interested in getting involved with that, applications are due in the JMC room 301 Don Moore Center, and they're due before Thanksgiving, so that's coming up pretty quick. But they're looking for people who like graphic design, photography, and marketing, and they're doing this specifically for the Red Thread movement this year. I think last year they did it to benefit Haiti. So that's one way you guys can get involved. And also, please pray for the traffickers, pray for the girls that are being trafficked, and buy a bracelet. That would be great. So thank you so much for coming, and come talk to us if you have questions.